He's not here yet. Okay. I better take a look at this at some point. Boker Tov, everyone. Boker Tov to all those joining us in Zoom. Boker Tov to all those joining us on Facebook and YouTube. We are about to commence our Shacharit service. It's going to happen in one more second. There's a guitar that needs to be tuned. Thank you, Evan. We are so attuned. We'll start our service on page 186. We invite you to open your Sidurim there as we try to dedicate a moment of awareness to being awake, to opening our eyes and encountering our souls.
מודעני לפניך, מלך חי וקיים, שחזרת בי נשמתי בחמלה. מודעני לפניך, מלך חי וקיים, שחזרת בי נשמתי בחמלה. רבה אמונתך, רבה אמונתך, רבה אמונתך, רבה אמונתך. מודעני לפניך, מלך חי וקיים, שחזרת בי נשמתי בחמלה. מודעני לפניך, מלך חי וקיים, שחזרת בי נשמתי בחמלה. רבה אמונתך, רבה אמונתך, רבה אמונתך, רבה אמונתך. יאללה ליי, 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 יאללה ליי. רבה אמונתך, רבה אמונתך, רבה אמונתך, רבה אמונתך.
Thanks to you, ever-living sovereign, that you have restored my soul to me in mercy. How great is your trust. We'll now turn our Sidurim to page 192. Matovu alecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Israel. How wonderful are our homes, the homes that we build together. How wonderful is our community. How wonderful is to enter this communal space that we build together. In this morning of Parashat Truma, we are reminded that we are the builders of our sanctuaries, and the sanctuaries are not the structures that surround us, but those that we build within our hearts. We'll now turn our Sidurim to page 194 for the blessing for the well-functioning of our bodies. מלך אתה אדוני אלוהינו, מלך העולם, אשר יצר את אדם בחוכמה, וברא בו נקבים. It is well known before your throne, Flori, that if one of them be wrongly opened or closed, it would be impossible to endure. Stand before you. Blessed are you, Adonai, who heals all flesh, working wondrously. Page 196. The blessing for our souls. Shema.
הנשמה שנתת בי טהורה היא אלוהי נשמה שנתת בי טהורה היא אתה בראת אתה יצרת אתה נפחת בי ואתה משמרה בקרבי ואתה עתיד לתבע ממני ולחזירה בי לעתיד לעבור כל זמן שנשמה בקרבי מגע אני לפניך כל זמן שנשמה בקרבי מגע אני לפניך אדוני אלוהי אלוהי אבותיי אדוני אלוהי אלוהי אבותיי ריבון כל המעשים אדון כל הנשמות ריבון כל המעשים אדון כל הנשמות אלוהי הנשמה שנתת בי טהורה היא
Source of all creation, sovereign of all souls. Praise are you, Adonai, whose hand is every living soul and the breath of humankind. Baruch atah Adonai, asher beyado nefesh kol chai, veruach kol basar ish.
אמן
On page 198, we will chant the blessings for what we call the daily miracles, Nisim bechol yom. And as we recite the words of our tradition, I want to invite you to think 198. And as we recite the words of our tradition, I want you to take a moment, I want all of us to take a moment to think about what are those blessings that might not be in the Siddur, but they are central to our routines. They are central for us to start our days and to live life of connection, a life of meaning. So, close your eyes just for a moment and try to picture something that is really, really important to you. Something in your routine. And with that idea in your mind, with that sense of gratitude, we will recite Birkot HaShachar.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who has given the mind the ability to distinguish day from night.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who opens the eyes of the blind, meaning to give us the ability to learn new things.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who frees the captive.
Amen. Giving us the ability to stretch our body, so you can take a moment and stretch your body. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who lift up the fallen. You can straight up your back.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who stretches the earth over the waters.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who strengthens our steps. If you want to take a moment to step firmly, move your legs a little bit. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who clothes the naked.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who gives strength to the weary.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who removes sleep from the eyes and slumber from the eyelids.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who made all human beings things equal.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who has given me free will.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who has made me a Jew.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who girds Israel with strength.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who crowns Israel with splendor.
Amen. Turn our Sidurim to page 204 for the blessing, for the study of Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu לעסוק בדברי Torah. Oh Adonai, our God, let the words of Torah be sweet in our mouths and the mouths of your people Israel, so that we and our descendants and the descendants of all your people Israel may know you by studying your Torah for its own sake. Baruch atah Adonai, המלמד Torah לעמו Israel.
Amen.
Page 206.
These are things that are limitless, of which a person enjoys the fruit of the world, while the principle remains in the world to come. They are honoring one's parents, engaging in deeds of compassion, arriving early for study, morning and evening, dealing graciously with guests, visiting the sick, providing for the wedding couple, accompanying the dead for burial, being devoted in prayer, and making peace among people. But the study of Torah encompasses them all.
We turn our Sidurim to page 212 for the blessing for the Psukei de Simra.
Baruch Shema v'haya haolam, Baruch Hu, Baruch Shema, Baruch Chaseh Bereshit, Baruch Omer ve'oseh, Baruch Gozer u'mekayem, Baruch merachem al haaretz, Baruch merachem al habriyot, Baruch meshalem sachar tov lireach, Baruch chai la'ad v'kayam lanetzach, Baruch podeh u'matzil, Baruch Hu, Baruch Shemo.
With songs of praise we extol you and proclaim your sovereignty. Great, God is ruler. His name is eternal.
בתשבחות, מלך מהולל, בתשבחות, ברוך אתה, אדוני, מלך מהולל, בתשבחות.
We start the Psukei de Simra in Shabbos with Psalm 92, מזמור שיר ליום השבת.
טוב להודות לאדוני, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר ולזמר לשמך עליון, טוב להודות לאדוני. לאדוני, אוי לזמר ולזמר לשמך עליון, טוב להודות לאדוני, אוי להגיד בבוקר חסדך. ולהגיד בבוקר חסדך. באמונתך בלילות, באמונתך בלילות, טוב להודות לאדוני. להגיד בבוקר חסדך. להגיד בבוקר חסדך. באמונתך בלילות, באמונתך בלילות, טוב להודות לאדוני. להגיד בבוקר חסדך. להגיד בבוקר חסדך. באמונתך בלילות, באמונתך בלילות, טוב להודות לאדוני.
להגיד בבוקר חסדך.
להגיד בבוקר חסדך. באמונתך בלילות, באמונתך בלילות, טוב להודות
The top of page 115.
אשרי העם שככה לו, אשרי העם שאדוני אלוהיו, אשרי העם שככה לו, אשרי העם שאדוני אלוהיו. אשרי יושבי ביתך עוד יהללוך צאלה. אשרי יושבי ביתך עוד יהללוך צאלה. אשרי העם שככה לו, אשרי העם שאדוני אלוהיו, אשרי העם שככה לו, אשרי העם שאדוני אלוהיו.
אשרי העם שככה לו,
אשרי העם שאדוני אלוהיו, אשרי העם שככה לו, אשרי העם שאדוני אלוהיו.
ליד לדוד, הלא ממך לא היה מלך, ועברך שמך לעולם בהעד.
בכל יום אברכך, בלילה שמך לעולם ועד.
גדול אדוני ומהולל מאוד, בגדולתו אין חקר.
דור לדור ישבח מעשיך, וגבורותיך יגידו.
הדר כבוד עודך, מדברי נפלאותיך אשיכם.
ועזוז נורותיך יאמרו, וגדולתך אספרנה.
זכר טובך יבואו, בצדקתך ירעננו.
חנון ברחום אדוני, ערך אפיים וגדול חסד.
טוב אדוני לכל, ברחמיו על כל מעשיו.
יודוך אדוני כל מעשיך, וחסידיך יברכוך.
כבוד מלכותך יאמרו, בגבורתך ידברו.
להודיע לבני האדם גבורותיו, וכבוד הדר מלכותו.
מלכותך מלכות כל עולמים, וממשלתך בכל דור ודור.
סומך אדוני לכל הנופלים, וזוקף לכל הכפופים.
עיני כל אליך ישברו, ואתה נותן להם את אוכלם בעתו.
פותח את ידיך, ומשביע לכל חי רצון.
צדיק אדוני בכל דרכיו, וחסיד בכל מעשיו.
קרוב אדוני לכל קוראיו, לכל אשר יקראוהו באמת.
רצון ירב יעשה, בית שבתם ישמע ויושיעם.
שומר אדוני את כוכביו, ואת כל השעים ישמיד.
תהילת אדוני ידבר פיhi, ויברך כל בשר שם קודשו, לעולם ועד.
ואנחנו נברך יה, מעתה ועד עולם. הללויה.
Page 218, Psalm 150.
כל הנשמה תהלליה, הללויה, הללויה. כל הנשמה תהלליה, הללויה, הללויה. הללויה, 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 הללויה. כל הנשמה תהלליה, הללויה, הללויה. כל הנשמה תהלליה, הללויה, הללויה.
God of the first and the last, God of all creatures, Master of all generations, who is praised in a multitude of praises, who guides the world with abundant loving kindness and all creatures with mercy. Adonai neither slumbers nor sleeps. God awakens the sleeping and arouses those who slumber, gives speech to the mute. And God loosens the bonds of captives. God supports the fallen and strengthens those who are bent over. You alone do we acknowledge. We're on page 220.
Ilufinu male shira kayam ol shanenu rina veyadenu frosot כנשרי שמיים ברגלינו קלות קיילות. אילופינו מלא שירה קיים ולשוננו רינה בידינו פרוסות כנשרי שמיים ברגלינו קלות קיילות. אין אנחנו מספיקים להודות לך ולברך את שמך מלכנו. אין אנחנו מספיקים להודות לך ולברך את שמך מלך מלכי המלכים, מלך מלכי המלכים, מלך מלכי המלכים. מלא שירה קיים ולשוננו רינה וידינו פרוסות כנשרי שמיים ברגלינו קלות כימים. מלא שירה קיים ולשוננו רינה וידינו פרוסות כנשרי שמיים ברגלינו קלות כיהנות.
אהב בתעצומות עושך הגדול בכבוד שמך. O God, in the power of your strength, great in the glory of your name, mighty forever, awesome in amazing deeds, the ruler who sits on a high, unexalted throne. We're on page 222.
שוכן עד מרום וקדוש שמו, וכתוב רלנו צדיקים באדוני, לישרים נבא תהילה, בפי ישרים תתהלל, ולדברי צדיקים תתברך, ולשון חסידים תתרומם, ובקרב קדושים תתקדש. ומקלות ריבות עמך בית ישראל, ברינה יתפאר שמך מלכנו, בכל דור ודור. ישתבח שמך לעד מלכנו, האל המלך הגדול והקדוש בשמיים ובארץ. כי לך נאה, אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו, שושבחה הלל וזמרה, עוד ממשלה, נצח גדולה גבורה, תהילה ותפארת, קדושה ומלכות, ברכות והודאות, מעתה ועד עולם. ברוך אתה אדוני, אל מלך גדול בתשבחות, אל ההודעות אדון הנפלאות, הבוחר בשירי זמרה, מלך מלכי העולמים. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דיברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל. בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך לעולם ולעלמי עלמיה. יתברך וישתבח, ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי דקודשה בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה. תושבחתה ונחמתה לאמירן והלמה. אמרו אמן.
As we rise for Baruch, we take a moment to acknowledge our community and to recognize that each of us counts in our minyan, that the diversity, the variety of our minyan, of our people, of our community is representative of the unity of God.
ברכו את אדוני
Page 228, you may be seated. Baruch atah
Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam
Actually, this melody is so nice when you sing it at camp and you see the entire community singing and the light that's coming from the sun, but also the light that is coming from those that are sitting around you. Yotzer HaMeorot. The blessing for the creation of lights is about not only recognizing the light that comes from the sun, but the light that comes from within our hearts, and the light that we have and we can share with each other. Baruch atah Adonai, Yotzer HaMeorot.
Amen.
Page 230, Abba Rava, Aftanu Adonai Eloheinu, Chemla Gdola Ve'itera Chamalta Aleinu. How deeply you have loved us, Adonai, our God, raising us with surpassing compassion. Ve'reineinu B'toratecha, enlighten our eyes with your Torah. Help us find direction. Help us find a path in our lives, so we can be also creators and makers of holiness. Guide us in peace from the four corners of the earth, and lead us upright to our land. For you, O God, work wonders. You chose us truly. You drew us near to your great name, that we might acknowledge you, declaring you one in love. Praise be you, Adonai, who chooses your people Israel in love, to love. Baruch atah Adonai, abocher be'amo Israel be'ahava.
Amen.
Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Please join me on page 234 for the chanting of Ve'ahavta. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם נאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך And we continue in English in the middle of page 236.
We can read all of us together
And
in
let's
English,
read
so let's
together.
try.
Adonai said to Moses as follows: Speak to the Israelite people and instruct them to make for themselves fringes on the corners of their garments throughout the ages. Let them attach a cord of blue to the fringe at each corner. That shall be your fringe. Look at it and recall all the commandments of Adonai and observe them, so you do not follow your heart and eyes in your lustful urge. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
אדוני אלוהיכם אמת, אמת ויציב ואהוב וחביב ונורא בדיר וטוב ויפה, הדבר עשה עלינו לעולם בהת. אמת אלוהי עולם מלכנו, צור יעקב מגן אישנו, לדור ודור הוא קיים, ושמו קיים, וכסהו נכון, ומלכותו ואמונתו לעד קיימת, ודבריו חיים בקיימים. The section of the Shema in our service concludes with the blessing for redemption, Michamocha. It's about recognizing the power that emerges, the redemptive power that emerges from the ability to recognize that we are loved and that we have be'avta, the ability to love others.
Let's write together.
צור ישראל, קומה בעזרת ישראל. ובדנומך יהודה וישראל. גואלנו, אדוני צבאות שמו. קדוש ישראל, ברוך אתה אדוני. גואל ישראל.
Amen.
Turn our Sidurim to page 242 for Tfilat Amidah. אדוני שפתי תפתח ופי יגיד תהילתך. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei avotenu v'imotenu Elohei Abraham Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah האל הגדול האור והנורא אל עליון קומך צדים טובים וקונה הכל וזוכר חסר ואימהות ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך חוזר ומשיח מגן, אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם, צרת צרה.
אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיה מתים אתה, רב להושיע. משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיה מתים ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ברופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בגבורות וגיבור מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה. מרמנת על החיות מתים, ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיה המתים.
נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד נביאך, וכרז אל זה ואמר, קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות, אלוהי כל הארץ לכבודו. אדיר אדירנו אדוני, אדוננו מאדיר, שמך בכל הארץ, ברוך כבוד אדוני במקומו. אחד הוא אלוהינו, הוא אבינו ומכינו, הוא מושיענו והוא ישמיענו, ברחמיו לעיני כל חי. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהי ציון לדור ודור. הללויה. לדור ודור,
דור ודור,
לדור ודור,
דור ודור,
לדור
ודור
ודור
נגיד גודלך, לדור ודור,
לדור ודור,
לדור ודור,
לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים, ולנצח נצחים, קדושתך קדושתך נקיש, ושבחך אלוהינו כפיר לא ימוש, לעולם לעולם ועד.
דור ודור,
לדור ודור,
לדור
לדור ודור נגיד גודלך,
לדור ודור,
לדור ודור,
לדור ודור,
לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים, ולנצח נצחים, קדושתך קדושתך נקיש, ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש, לעולם לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. ישמחו מותך שום ושום וכל העולם, ומקדשי שבי כלים מסביב תמגו מטובך, משמיעים יצאת בו קידשנו, חמדת ימין אותו קראת, זכר למעשה בראשית, אלוהים ואלוהים אדוני אדוני.
page 258.
Sim Shalom Tova Ubracha Sim Shalom Tova Ubracha Sim Shalom Tova Ubracha Sim Shalom Tova Ubracha Chen b'chesed Chen b'chesed berachamim Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael Amecha Sim Shalom Tova Ubracha Sim Shalom Tova Ubracha Sim Shalom Tova Ubracha Sim Shalom Tova Ubracha
Page 362. We will get started with the service of Torah, the Torah service.
אין כמוך באלוהים אדוני ואין כמעשיך מלכותך מלכות כל עולמים וממשלתך בכל דור ודור אדוני מלך אדוני מלך אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד אדוני עוש לעמו ייתן אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום כי מציון תצא תורה כי מציון תצא תורה ודבר אדוני מירושלים ברוך שנתן תורה תורה ברוך שנתן תורה תורה לעמו ישראל בקדושתו שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
אחד אלוהינו
אחד אלוהינו,
גדול אדוננו
אדוננו,
קדוש שמו גדלו לאדוני איתי ונרוממה שמו יחדיו
יבורך כל ישראל. Shalom, shalom, everyone.
Shalom.
Shabbat, shalom. What a Shabbos, Parashat Truma. I want to get started by, I want to go out of script for one moment. Not that I ever have a script, but hey. This is how it goes. Usually on Friday nights, I do have a script. On Saturday mornings, I'm more of a free conversation with some specific direction that I try to provide at the beginning and the end. But yesterday, what were you saying, Mark? Extemporaneous. That's such a wonderful word. Thank you for bringing that. So yesterday night, after Kabbalat Shabbat, a group of us stayed speaking in Zoom, and I decided that I wasn't going to speak at services about some of the things that happened last week, but I realized that there's a very interesting distinction to make this week, and so I want to emphasize that distinction. So we have two different, very different situations. One is Whoopi Goldberg, who made something that could be understood as an anti-Semitic remark. And we have Amnesty International, which made a report that can be totally understood as anti-Semitic. So, and I wanted to make this distinction because I think it's very telling about our society and how we are thinking in our society. This is just 1 minute that I want to have your attention for this, and then we'll talk about Parashat Truma. Don't share my screen yet. Don't. In a live conversation, Whoopi Goldberg expressed herself, and it was understood and perceived as harmful the way in which she did, in which she spoke about the Jewish community, race, etc. Now, almost immediately after that, when she realized that she made a mistake, she apologized. Not only that, she decided that she needed to educate herself. They brought the head of the IDL to the program, and she made her own path for rectification. And it wasn't a rectification that was, dictated by a spokesperson. Sincerely, she apologized. And one of the most important things to understand, I think, in this society, in our society, in which we speak very often about cancel culture, is that intentionality matters. If someone made a sincere mistake, and I'm not diminishing that mistake, I'm not diminishing the view that mistake represents, and the big challenge that we have, because that's the view of many, many people in our society, and there's a real gap to bridge here. And knowledge gaps are bridged with education. So there's something that needs to be educated. We need to keep working on that. We feel that we have done enough, but it turns out that we need to keep engaging on education. But she apologized, and then she was suspended for her program. Now, in our tradition, we believe in teshuvah. We believe that if someone made a mistake, acknowledge that mistake, and made some actions to rectify that mistake, we can move forward together. We don't move on. Teshuvah is not about moving on, it's about moving forward. It's about embracing what has happened and moving forward. And Rabbi David Young, who was here a few weeks ago, he posted that she is a victim of the I got you culture. right? Like which is the entitled child of the cancel culture, right? It's even worse, and it's out of control. And once again, I want to emphasize that our tradition, the tradition of Teshuvah, is a tradition of repentance, is a tradition of forgiveness, it's a tradition of education. And when we recognize an educational gap, we know what to do. We need to keep educating. That's one thing. Now, Amnesty International, well, that's an expression of intentional ignorance, right? Defining Israel once again as an apartheid state not only demonstrates a lack of knowledge of what Israel really is, also is bringing Israel, on comparing Israel to a terrible situation that humanity experienced, which was the apartheid. So it's bringing a picture, an idea of something that was terrible, the story of humanity, and saying what is happening in Israel is exactly that. And I was in our discussion yesterday, I was saying there are so many things that are wrong in Israel, so many things that need to be rectified. Just open the news in Israel. They're all out there. Read them in English, read them in Hebrew. You'll see them. Israel is a country that is constantly working to better itself, and there are political divides, there are different ideologies, and there are things that when they come to execution, they come out very, very, very badly. And I am all for improving Israel. But from there to call Israel an apartheid state is like just, you don't know what you're talking about. But what you are saying ends up having an influence on our teenagers that then later on in their school, in Fullerton, they're accused of being children killers. Like that's the connection, that's how it works. That's how anti-Semitism works. So I was describing a situation that I saw a couple of days ago in Israel. There is a discussion going on regarding how to do a better settling for the Bedouins. There's a big population of Bedouins in the south of Israel, and there was a discussion in the Knesset because they are implementing a new law. By the way, the settlers in the occupied territories, and there are different territories, but just to use the vocabulary that the UN uses, they complain that the Bedouins actually are going to get better rights of what they get, and there's an entire mess in that area. Bottom line, there's a discussion about what's going to be the bottom line of the agreement with the Bedouins to create better living conditions and better infrastructure for them. And the person who was presiding the session in the Knesset was an Arab, the leader of an Arabic party. The person who was criticizing the government, she is a member of the coalition, and she too was an Arab. The minister, by the way, one more second. The minister that came to answer to her, guess what? He was an Arab as well. And the three of them belong to three different parties. Only one of them is an Arab party. I don't think you can call that apartheid state. And I think when you use that terminology, you are pushing an agenda. An agenda that is very harmful, not for the state of Israel, not only for the state of Israel, for the Jewish people. You're harming Jews all over the world. A better thing would be to criticize Israel's democracy. That even when we have beautiful expressions of democracy, we still have lots of challenges. There's still laws that need to be modified, and there's still laws that keep coming to the Knesset, to the parliament, and they are really challenging. And you even can say that some of those laws are, almost racist, because they come from members of the Knesset that's what they represent, in my view, or in the view of most of the Knesset, because most of the time, those laws don't pass. So yes, we have internal challenges, and we have voices in our democracy that are very challenging, not to say that we dislike them very profoundly. But that's the reality of a democratic state, not an apartheid state. Last thing, I don't know, my dad doctor is an Arab. The doctor that took care of my mom before she passed away, and we trusted him with her life. And we really trusted him. He was an Arab. So these distinctions are also harmful for how the Israeli society sees itself. There is inequality. There are social gaps that need to be bridged. But what these kind of accusations do, they only bring more anti-Semitism and move us from the focus. Because instead of bettering ourselves, now we are focusing on defending ourselves. So let's hope, let's pray, and let's work to remove all these distractions and to keep building a state for the Jewish people and for all its citizens that is a wonderful place and the idea of a promised land. Okay, Parashat Truma. Let's get it quickly. Well, so far. Okay, don't share my screen, Zach. No, Aiden. Or whoever's there. Aiden, it's you. But Zach was here at some point, so that's why. So say Zach. I didn't get the update button. Let me share my screen. So, for those that had the opportunity to listen to what I shared yesterday, I want to make a quick update on that. Don't read that yet. I'm going to fly through it. We're in Parashat Truma. Parashat Truma, I feel that you are a bit sleepy today, so I will move around. Follow me. So, Parashat Truma. Parashat Truma is an anomaly. Like, all the stories that we have been reading until this moment in the Torah are stories. Are stories of people, interactions. And all of a sudden, there's not story anymore. And we get a list of build it yourself. Instructions to build a tabernacle. So there's a huge question of what's changing, what's different, why is all this change happening? I want to offer, and wrote myself at the top a reminder, I want to offer an explanation to that. What's the first commandment? I am the Lord your God. Keep going. Who took what? That's second, right? First and second. I am the Lord your God who took you out from the land of Egypt. You shouldn't have any other God beside me. There are the two commandments. Now, the Talmud says that the only two commandments the Jewish people actually heard were those two. Then they got distracted because there were all these horns and smoke and the clouds, and they couldn't hear all the rest. Now, what they did here, at least, is that in order to worship God, you need to be free. So if the unity of God, they got two values: unity of God and freedom. Now, another interesting thing is that out of nowhere, at the end of Parashat Yitro, what happens? I wrote it here for you. There's an entire description of how to build an altar for sacrifices, which is like out of the blue. It doesn't make any sense. There's no reason to start that conversation there. And as a matter of fact, what comes after Parashat Yitro? Parashat Mishpatim. Come on, guys. Do it. Say it. Mishpatim. Mishpatim. So there's a very long list of laws. So 10 commandments, this description of the altar, and then Parashat Mishpatim, which is a long list of laws. Now, rabbis all over ask, what's the reason for that? And I'll try to bring some idea for that. Now, can you go down to the Midrash HaGadol? It's the second source. Beautiful. Go to the third one, actually. We're going to jump this one. The Midrash compares. We're not going to read this one because otherwise you're going to be here until tomorrow, but I want you just to have the idea, and I want you to know that it's not coming only from my mind. The Midrash compares the creation of the Mishkan that we are commanded to build in Parashat Trumah with the creation of the world. The rabbis see that as a straight continuity between the creation that God brought to the world and what we have discussed many times, which is the idea of human partnership in the creation. And I reminded yesterday what once Ishayahu Leibovich said, which is that to the entire story of creation in the Torah we have around 31 verses, 32 verses, and to the building of the Mishkan we have more than 300. It's absolutely disproportional. The story of creation is 10% of the building of the Mishkan. And Leibovich says that the reason for that is that Torah and God are not so interested in the history, in the toldot, in the offsprings of the idea of creation. They're way more interested in conveying the idea that life in this universe is about becoming builders and searching for meaning. Now, I want to go to the Book of Deuteronomy. If you keep going down, you'll see Deuteronomy. This is the title. Now, the verse that we read in Torah is Ve'asu li mikdash ve'shachanti betocham. This is not in Deuteronomy, it's in Exodus, it's in this Torah portion. You'll see why I'm going to Deuteronomy in a second. No, just keep it where it was. No, you were fine. Go up. Perfect. So, Ve'asu li mikdash ve'shachanti betocham. And you build me a sanctuary, and I will dwell betocham. What's the meaning of betocham? In their midst. In their midst. Betocham, they. Their midst. Shouldn't it be, and I will dwell betocho? If you are building me a sanctuary, isn't that the place in which I am supposed to be? If you build me a house, you say, well, I tell you, you are building me a house, and I will live with you in your house, somewhere else. I'm not going to go to that house. That's basically what the verse is saying. You will build me a sanctuary, and I will dwell betocham, with them. No, inside that sanctuary. And the question is, and I want to ask you, why is that? Why is that the building of the sanctuary comes to the divine presence, the Shekhinah, being betocham and not betocho, inside the structure itself? Because it's in the people and not in the structure. Why? Because it's in the heart of the people. So, let me translate what you're saying because nobody else can hear you. The Mikdash, the Mishkan, we're talking about the Mishkan right now. It'll become the Mikdash later. The Mishkan, the tabernacle, is you're using a nice, very nice word, is an exteriorization of a process that is supposed to be happening in their hearts. Free translation, but quite close, right? Okay, so that's a very interesting idea. Any other ideas? So the synagogue is the building and is to some extent unimportant. So meaning comes from people, not from the structures. That's what you are saying, if I understand you correctly. I think you are absolutely right. Now, interesting. You want to say something, Melissa, before I? Okay, so Usamtem in the book of Deuteronomy says, Usamtem et divrei dvarai ele al lebavchem, and the reason of the word, you will put these things upon your hearts, as we say also in the Shema, and the word lebav, two bets, basically refers to every time, or very often when you see a letter repeated in the Torah, as Yatzar in the book of Genesis with two yuds, means two inclinations, like your whole existence, your bad, your evil inclinations, your positive inclinations, all what you are. So you are supposed to put these ideas in your entire existence, bind them as a sign on your hand, let them serve as, etc., on your forehead. Ulamatem otam benechem, and teach them to your lebenechem, and teach them to your children. Recite them when you stay at home and when you are away, when you lay down, and when you get up. Katabtem al mesudot betecho v'she'arecha, who say in the Shema, etc. One more second. And the last sentence says, if then you faithfully keep all these instructions that I command you, loving the Lord, etc., walking in all his ways. So what's this idea about walking in all his ways and this idea of holding it in our hearts? If you go down to Proverbs, Eden, Bechol drachecha, in all its paths, in all its ways, Deu, acknowledge him, or you shall get to know him, or you shall recognize him, and that will make your path smooth, say the Proverbs. There is something about walking and finding meaning and being intentional about the way in which we walk. We're going to jump and jump. Now, what's the Mishkan? You can wait for it with us. What's the Mishkan coming to do in the story of Torah? I am improvising all the things that I'm cutting, so I will make sure that they make sense. Make sure that they make sense at the end. I'm changing the order because I went with the in-prep to speech about anti-Semitism. What? The presence of God. The Mishkan is supposed to help us acknowledge the presence of God. Is the purpose of the Mishkan to help us pray more? Always. Yes. So Nitza is speaking about the size of the Mishkan. Yeah, but that's not Mishkan in the Torah. Mishkan, a dwelling place, but in the Mishkan in the Torah, we're talking about the tabernacle, which is a ritual place. Now, thank you, Nitza, for making that distinction. Is the Mishkan, once again, supposed to help us pray more? No. I would say exactly the opposite. The Mishkan is coming to reduce the quantity of worship that was being done. What are you talking about, right? Well, Children of Israel are living in Egypt in a situation in which everyone can pray everywhere at every single moment. And that's not the idea of Jewish tradition of how you are supposed to have God as a part of your life. It's not about praying all day or making sacrifices all day long. The Mishkan comes to say there's one place, we're going to set the times, and we have very specific people that will perform that work. So it's about giving us focus. You want to build the Mishkan, so you're going to be intentional about engaging in this building. But what we really, really want you to do, we want you to engage in mitzvot. That's how you bring God's presence to your life. Not by building a Mishkan or by coming to services, keep coming to services, or by coming to services every Saturday morning. Keep coming. Like, how many mitzvot do you perform when you come to a service? One. You read the Shema. That's it. All the rest, no mitzvot. They don't come from Torah. Even the reading of the Torah doesn't come from the Torah, guys. There's one mitzvah we perform when we come to services, which is the reading of the Shema. And we have fixed times for prayer. Why? Because, as we said many times, when you come to service, when you come to pray, you are exercising or practicing to some extent your spirituality. But real spirituality, real connection with God is when you are driving, when you are walking in the streets. And so the Mishkan is trying to tell us, well, focus on this idea, do it intentionally, try to allow room for God. But the idea of having God in your life is strictly connected with fulfilling mitzvah. I want you to read. Where's Heschel? Disappear. Have Heschel somewhere here. Did I delete him? Wait a second. Here it is. Okay. Can you go all the way back down to Heschel? Who wants to be our reader? Gabby, you can read. That. Stop. Go. There. You want to read, Gab? You have a microphone, that's why I'm asking you. The immanence of God indeed.
Cool.
Where is the presence?
Where is the presence? Where is the glory of God to be found? It is found in the world. The whole earth is full of his glory.
From Psalms, Mlo haaretz kevodo.
In the Bible, and in a sacred deed. Do only the heavens declare the glory of God? It is deeply significant that Psalm 19 begins, the heavens declare the glory of God, and concludes with a paean to the Torah and to the mitzvot. The world, as well as the sacred deed, are full of his glory. God is more immediately found in the Bible as well as in acts of kindness and worship than in the mountains and the forests. It is more meaningful for us to believe in the immanence of God in deeds than in the immanence of God in nature. Indeed, the concern of Judaism is primarily not how to find the presence of God in the world of things, but how to let God enter the ways in which we deal with things, how to be with God in time, not only in space. This is why the mitzvah is a supreme source of religious insight and experience. The way to God is a way of God, and the mitzvah is a way of God, a way where the self-evidence of the holy is disclosed. We have few words, but we know how to live in deeds that express God. God is one, and God's glory is one. And oneness means wholeness, indivisibility? Yes. His glory is not partly here and partly there. It is all here and all there. But here and now, in this world, the glory is concealed. It becomes revealed in a sacred deed, in a sacred moment, in a sacrificial deed. No one is lonely when doing a mitzvah, for a mitzvah is where God and man meet. We do not meet God in the way in which we meet things of space. To meet God means to come upon an inner certainty of God's realness, upon an awareness of God's will. Such meeting, such presence, we experience in deeds.
Thank you. So Heschel very clearly points out that the idea of capturing, of experiencing God is not in a spiritual ecstasy of a connection with music. It could happen, but it's actually in routinary on daily life deeds. Two more things. The words of I want to read for you something that comes a few Torah portions later that has to do actually with the building of the golden calf. Now, until this moment, we don't hear about gold, and all of a sudden, in the building of the Mishkan, we hear about gold. We hear once again about gold when the Israelites are quite preoccupied and they want to build the golden calf. Why they want to build the golden calf? Because they are waiting for too long. Because, yes? So you're saying they want the security of something to look at. They lost their faith on Moses coming back. So I want to take that and slightly twist that and say that the foundation of their faith was actually Moses. They didn't even hear the commandments. Going back to our first, they had no idea. And they, to some extent, couldn't distinguish between God and Moses. As we see in other places in the Torah, when they are speaking with Moses, said, "No, you tell us." "No, God, you tell us." So the Israelites, the only thing they know is to connect to God through a different entity, a prophet, an object, a rabbi, and they are all wrong. They are wrong. And from that place of connection, the golden calf is born. And it's so pointing when you read the Hebrew that the two words that they use, one is lakhu, which is lakahat, to take, which is the same word that we use to build the tabernacle, ikhuli truma, and lakhu also for the building of the golden calf. The motif of gold is once again there. And they say, and let's make for ourselves, which is the same word but the opposite direction of asuli, let's make a tabernacle. There are the three words that appear at the beginning of Parashat Truma. They also appear at the beginning of the story of the golden calf. And I want to conclude by reading the first couple of words of Parashat Truma. So they are here. Exodus 25, 1-3. Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe le'emor. And Yah spoke to Moses, saying, "Tell the Israelite people to bring me gifts. Ve'ikhu lakachat," exactly as in the golden calf story, "truma miet kol ish asher idavno livo." From every person whose heart is moved to do so. And I think that this is the entire story. That everything starts, Ve'ashevot el levabecha, let us return to your heart and let us return to our own hearts. Everything starts actually from inside. And also the connection to God doesn't come from being somewhere else. It comes from being mindful of our actions. And I conclude with these two ideas: the mindfulness of our actions, being open for that. Once the Kotzker Rebbe, later on I saw that associated with other figures, but we know that it comes from the Kotzker Rebbe. Once he was asked, "Where does God dwell?" To which he replied, "Wherever you let him in." So the building of the tabernacle is not because God is going to be in a wooden box. It's because by being mindful of our actions, we can bring God to our lives. And if you go even to the poem by Yehuda Levi, by the end, almost there. I sought your nearness with all my heart, I called you. And in my going out to meet you, I found you coming toward me. As in the wonders of your might and holy works, I saw you. Who would say he hasn't seen your glory as the heaven hordes declare? They're all of you without a sound being heard. But could the Lord, yeah, in truth, dwell in men on earth? How would men you made from the dust and clay fathom your presence there, enthroned upon their praise? The creatures hovering over the world praise your wonders, your throne borne high above their heads, as you bear all forever. Yehuda Levi says two different things here. One is, when I was calling you, and I was coming on your way, performing mitzvot, and seeking for that connection, I found you coming on my way. And at the same time, it's a very frightening and humbling experience to understand that we are responsible to hold God on earth and to have space for the source of meaning and for the source of creation in our lives. That it is no one else's work, and you don't get that done by repeating the right prayers. You get that done by being mindful that at every single moment of our lives, with every single decision we make, good and bad decisions, we are the builders. Shabbat Shalom. I'm going to read Torah quickly. Yes. That's okay. Yeah.
Column glass.
It works.
Yeah, okay. Chapter 26, verse 31, fifth line of the page 609. Yam tu, Miriam Shoshana bat Farfova Esther, Aliyah Rishon, Miriam Van Ralt, and reading will be Mark Filowitz.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai hamvorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher bachar banu mikol hamim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. V'asita parhaim תכלת ארבעמן בתולת שני בשש מזר מעשה חושב יעשה אותה קרובים ונתת אותה על 4 עמודי שיטים מזופים זכב ויחם זכב על 4 אדני כסף ונתת את הברוכת תחת ככרותים והבאת שמה מבית לפרוכת עין ארון העדות והבדילה הפרחם לכם בין הקודש ובין קודש הקדושים ונתת את הכפרת על ארון העדות והקודש הקדושים ושמת את השולחן מחוץ לפרוכם ויד המנורה נוכח השולחן על זלה המשכן תימה והשולתן תיתן על זלת צפון ועשית מסך לפחת האוכל תכלת בארגמן ותולת שני ושש משזר מעשה רוקם ועשית למסך 5 עמודי שיטים וזיווה אותם זהב ובחם זהב ויקוטה לכם 5 אדני נחושת.
Asher Koach.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת וחיי עולם נתן בתוכנו ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen. Asher Koach. Yamdu v'yamdu Ephraim ben Aharon v'Vegel u'ben Yamina Tima Zandra bat Michael Abraham v'Malka Leah John Goldman and John and Melissa Goldman, and reading will be Rabbi Nicholas.
Baruch Adonai Hamorah.
ברוך ה' מבורך לעולם ועד.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher b'chavanu mikol hamim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
אמן. ועשית את המזבח עצי שתים 5 אמות אורך ו5 אמות רוחב רבוע יהיה המזבח ב3 אמות קומתו ועשית קרנותיו על 4 פינותיו ממנו תהיין קרנותי וציפית אותו נחושת ועשית צילותיו לדשנו ביעף ומסדקותיו ומסגלותיו ומתחתיו לכל כליו תעשה נחושת ועשית לו מגבר מעשה רשת נחושת ועשית על הרשת 4 טבת נחושת על 4 קצבותיו ונתת אותה תחת כרכב המזבח רכב המזבח מלמטה הייתה הרשת עד חצי המזבח ועשית בדים למזבח בדי עצי שתים וציפית אותם נחושת והובא את בדיו בטבת ויהיו עבדים על 2 צלעות המזבח בסעת אותו נבוב לוחות תעשה אותו כאשר אראה אותך בהר כן יעשה. Nuestro breath.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen. Yasher koach. Yamdu v'yamdu Aharon Moshe ben Avraham v'Rita Aliyah Hashlishi. Mark Silverstein, yours truly. And reading will be Nitza Henning.
Yeah, but you're going to read now.
He
has one.
microphone.
We have two or three.
Baruch et Adonai Hamvarach. Baruch Adonai Hamvarach L'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
ועשית את חצר המשכן, לפת נגב תימנה, קלעים, לחצר שמשזר, 100 באמה אורך, לפאה האחד, ועמודיו 20, ואדוניהם 20, נחושת, ובבי העמודים, וחשוקיהם כסף, וחליפת צפון, באורך קלעים 100 אורך ועמודיו 20 ואדניהם 20 נחושת ובבי עמודים וחשוקיהם כסף ורחב החצר לפאת ים קלעים 50 אמה עמודיהם 10 ואדוניהם 10 ורוחב החצר לפת קדמה מזרחה 50 אמה ו15 אמה קלעים לכתף עמודיהם 3 ואדוניהם 3 ולכתף השנית 15 קלעים עמודיהם 3 ואדוניהם 3 ולשאר חצר מסך 20 אמת תכלת וארגמן ותולעת שני ושש משזר מעשה רוקם עמדיהם 4 ואדוניהם 4.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam notah b'tochenu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
אמן. יעמדו לעליית המפטיר, ציד לרבקה בת שמואל ולאה, בגביר בן יצחק. ברוך ה' מבורך לעולם ועד.
אמן. כל עמודי החצר סביב מחושקים כסף, בביהם כסף, ואדניהם נחושת. אורך החצר 100 ואמה ורוחב 50 וכמה 5 אמות 6 מוסר ועיניהם נחושת. לכל כלי המשכן, בכל עבודתו, בכל יתדותיו, בכל יתדות החצר נחושת. אמן.
מי שברך אבותינו ואמותינו, אברהם יצחק ויעקב, שרה רבקה רחל ולאה, הוא יברך את כל העולים לתורה שעלו לכבוד המקום, שבת והתורה. May the one who bless our ancestors will bless all those who came up to the Torah, that came up to the Torah in honor of המקום, God, Shabbat, and Torah. May you have God's blessing, rescue from any trouble or distress, from any illness, minor or serious. And may God send blessing to all of you in all your endeavors, together with all Israel. And let us say,
Amen.
We'll also take a moment to acknowledge those that are dealing with illness. מי שברך אבותינו ואמותינו, אברהם יצחק ויעקב, שרה רבקה רחל ולאה, הוא יברך את החולים. May the one who bless our ancestors will bless those that are dealing with illness in their bodies, in their souls, those that are dealing with addictions. We invite you to share the names of those you're thinking of in the comment section on Facebook, Zoom, YouTube, and of course if you're here in person. May the Blessed Holy One be filled with compassion for their health to be restored and their strength to be revived. May God swiftly send them a complete renewal of body and spirit. And let us say,
Amen.
Besot
התורה אשר שם משה לפני בני ישראל על פי אדוני ביד משה. השלושה דברים, השלושה דברים, השלושה דברים לעולם לעולם אמן. השלושה דברים, השלושה דברים, שלושה דברים לעולם אמן.
על התורה
ועל העבודה ועל גמילות חסדים, על התורה ועל העבודה ועל גמילות חסדים.
חיים איל המחזיקים בה בתומכיה מאושר. It is a tree of life for those who hold fast to it. It is a source of joy. Their paths, its paths, are דרכי נועם, are pleasant, are paths of shalom, of reconciliation. Return us to you, Adonai, and we will return. Renew our days as of in days of old, to the memory of goodness, to the goodness that comes from Nedavot Livenu, from within our hearts, as we learn in Parashat Truma. Remind us that we are builders of our relationship with the world, but more than anything else, we are builders of our relationship with you, God. Help us seek and find within our hearts the willingness, the ability to live lives of meaning and connection. We're on page 588.
והשב אותם
אל לבביך,
אל
אותה
והשב אותה
אל לבביך,
אל לבביך,
כי אדוני
כי אדוני
הוא האלוהים,
הוא האלוהים ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ. ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא, יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו, ושמו, ושמו אחד.
may be seated. We'll now take a moment to acknowledge mourners. Going back to our Zoom call. To acknowledge mourners in our community. We acknowledge those during the first 7 days of mourning, Shiva, and so those that are during the first 30 days of mourning, Shloshin, and so those that are during the cycle of the first year of mourning, and those that have a yahrzeit. As we go around the room, we invite you to share the names that you are remembering, and please let us know in which cycle of mourning you are. And we invite those that are connecting with us through Zoom to share the names of those that you are remembering in this morning of Shabbat. That's in the cycle of the year. And Nathan Gus, Ronnie's father. Or you can support our fellows who are standing or sitting, join us with your voices or your hearts for Kaddish Avelim, for Mourners Kaddish on page 598. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה.
אמן.
בעלמה דברה חירותי באמליך מלכותי. בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב באמרו אמן.
אמן.
יהא שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולמי עלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא. ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי תקודשה
בריחו.
לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה. תושבחתה ונחמתה תמירם בעלמה באמרו אמן. יאש למה רבה מן שמיה. בחיים טובים עלינו ועל כל ישראל באמרו אמן. עושה שלום באמרומיו ויעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל באמרו אמן. May the memories of your dear ones be always a blessing in your life. יהיה זכרם ברוך. You may be seated. Quick announcements. Next week, we will be celebrating Shabbat morning the coming wedding of Rabbi Daniel and Shema. So they have also an Ufruf the weekend before the wedding itself in Los Angeles. So we call it communal Ufruf.
Gotcha.
We made like
Communal ufruf.
not that there's a law on how many Ufrufs you can have. But this is, so there's the Orange County Ufruf, and some of Daniel's students also in Hill will be joining us. It's going to be a lot of fun. So we encourage you to come and perform the mitzvah of bringing joy to the wedding couple. And a week later, we will be celebrating Elaine's 80th birthday. And for that purpose, we are going to bring Cantor Diego Rubinstein from Argentina, one of Elaine's favorites, who happens also to be a very good friend of TBT and me personally. And Diego will be doing Friday night with us, Saturday morning services with us, and with our musicians, of course. And after lunch, we'll have a concert called Elaine's Playlist. So we'll have a list of Elaine's favorite songs, and we'll try to play them as if it was a playlist with some style, we hope, right? But that's the idea. So we believe it's going to be a wonderful, wonderful communal celebration. It's not only great to acknowledge her and for her to feel the love that we have for her, but it's also very good for our community, going back to this idea of building the sanctuary, to feel moved by loving someone, by loving a Rebbetzin that has been always spectacular to this community. So let's let that love move us and build us as community. Now, let's do Ikdal.
Cool.
Let's do Ikdal. Let's do the Greek Ikdal, just to have some variety in our work. How do you feel about it? You don't like the Greek Ikdal? Which one you want, Mark? Mark, whatever you want.
I think
You-
that's
Igdal
just a
is fine?
space.
Are you fine with Ikdal? I1? Whatever Mark Filowitz says. Well, so we do
He
Ikdal.
just wants it to
we
conclude.
We do the Greek Ikdal. I don't remember what key is for the Greek Ikdal. I think it's a G. That's the. I know that's we need to work. We need to work on that one. I promise to do it. No, we need.
Below.
אלוהים חי, בהשתבח נמצא בין עת, אל מציאותו נמצא בעין עת, אל מציאותו.
אחד אין יחיד, כייחודו, נעלם וגם מצוף, לאחדותו, נעלם וגם מצוף, לאחדותו.
אין לו דמות הגוף, ואינו גוף, לא נערוך אליו, קדושתו לא נערוך אליו, קדושתו.
כמון לכל דבר, אשר נברא, ראשון ואין ראשית, לראשיתו, ראשון ואין ראשית, לראשיתו.
אינו אדון עולם, לכל נוצר, יורה גדולתו, ומלכותו, יורה גדולתו, ומלכותו, שפע נבואתו, נתנו אנשי סגולתו, ותפארתו אל אנשי סגולתו, ותפארתו. איי, יאללה, לה, לה, לה. לא קם בישראל ומשה הון נביא ומבית את אמונתו נביא ומבית אמונתו תורת אמת נתן לעמוהל על ידי נביאו נאמן ביתו על יד נביאו
נאמן ביתו.
לא יחליף האל אלא ימיר דתו לעולמים לסולתו לעולמים לסולתו.
נביט בסוף דבר בקדמתו נביט בסוף דבר בקדמתו.
דומה לאיש חסד כמפעלו נותן לרשע רע כרישתו נותן לרשע רע כרישתו. ישלח לקץ ימים גדות עולם כל חי ויש יכיר ישועתו כל חי ויש יכיר ישועתו. חיי עולם נטע בתוכנו ברוך הדיין שם תהילתו ברוך הדיין שם תהילתו. אדוני עוש לעמיו ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום. שבת שלום, שבת שלום, מבורך everyone. איי, איי, נה 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 נה
Shabbat Shalom.
Qué bien, Leslie.
Shabbat Shalom.